Hello, Jen Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. Before we get to today's subject, I just want to talk briefly about another subject. This would be Antifa, the organization that Jerrold Nadler, the Democratic chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, calls a myth. It's also the organization that Mazie Hirono, who is a senator, a Democratic senator, of course, on the Senate Judiciary Committee, well, she may have called it a myth, but she could not call it a myth, or she would have to embarrass herself greatly to call it a myth, after Ted Cruz showed videos of the violence that these violent Antifa thugs are committing in Portland, Oregon. And, well, if she didn't say that they're a myth, she at least, and she's not alone. Every Democrat, or let's put it another way, no Democrat has condemned Antifa yet, let alone acknowledge their violence. No one is, at least on the Democratic side, they are not denouncing Antifa, not calling for law enforcement against Antifa and these other rioters in Portland and Seattle and Minneapolis and a number of other cities. They are just completely silent on that. So I wanted to show this video. It looks like the mayor, Wheeler, of Portland is finally getting the message, and I think the reason is because of what I'm going to show you in this short video. It's these Antifa thugs no longer, well, they tried to burn down a police station. They were repelled, so they failed at that. So what did they do? They went to a residential area and they threatened a woman in her own home. A residential area. They stood in front of her house. Well, you'll see the video. They are threatening her. They are shining lasers in her eyes, trying to blind her. And I would, well, watch the video first, then I have an additional comment. So you just saw that Antifa exists, not just Antifa, but a number of other violent thugs in Portland, Oregon, attacking not just public property, but now they have moved into residential areas. It finally got the mayor, Ted Wheeler, to acknowledge the existence of Antifa and their violence. Let's see if some other Democrats, particularly in the House and the Senate, will now follow along. And let's hope that Mayor Wheeler will call on Donald Trump to help, to send in the National Guard to provide help to these police who are obviously not able to cope, to handle the situation. That's why this violence is getting so out of control, because these Democratic mayors at first refused to do anything, and now they are refusing to call on Donald Trump to help them because they don't want to cast any positive light on Donald Trump, number one. Number two, they don't want to have to admit that they needed help from Donald Trump. So we'll see how much worse it gets in Portland and a number of other cities. But I do want to end on, well, I won't call it a happy note, but a positive note, because these thugs came back a second night to threaten that same woman in her home. But this time the neighbors came out, and they came out, well, one of them had a lead pipe. They came out and they made it very clear that these demonstrators, quote unquote demonstrators, whom I call violent thugs, that they were going to pay a price if they continued to harass this woman. And now on to today's subject. You may have heard, read, it's been all over the news, a number of people, including pundits at the New York Times and other liberals, have been calling on Joe Biden to avoid debating Donald Trump. Now, to his credit, Biden is insisting that he wants to debate Donald Trump, that he personally is not worried. It's everybody around him who is worried, because they can pretty well predict what's going to happen if Biden debates Donald Trump. It's a reason why he stays in his basement, a reason why he's surrounded by handlers, a reason why he makes very brief virtual appearances on sympathetic stations, which reminds me that Chris Wallace, Fox News, who gave a very tough interview to Donald Trump, every week he issues an invitation for Joe Biden to be interviewed by him as well, and he gets no acceptance. I don't even know if he gets a response at all. But obviously these Biden supporters cannot come out and say what we all know to be true, that they're afraid to have Biden debate Trump because they fear that it will be a disaster. They mostly fear that Biden's obvious dementia, that's how it looks to me. Now, I am not a doctor, but it looks enough like the early stages and maybe even farther along stages of dementia that they are afraid of that becoming known or becoming more obvious than it is, at least to me. But because they cannot admit that, they have come up with various excuses, one of them being that in a debate, Trump would lie so much that Biden would have to spend his entire time in the debate correcting or debunking Donald Trump, because apparently Trump is a compulsive liar, but Biden always tells the truth. Oh yeah? Because he's been caught in a number of lies. I showed one in an earlier vlog where he claimed to have multiple degrees, that he claimed to have graduated or been at the top half of his class. Turned out that he was at the bottom of his class. He also got caught plagiarizing, which he has done repeatedly. He had to abandon an earlier presidential bid, I believe it was 1988, because he got caught. He gave a speech, and that speech was plagiarized from a British politician, Neil Kinnock. He got caught on that. So I want to give you, this is really interesting. It harkens back to what just happened recently. People, well, let me show this video again. I showed this video yesterday, or the day before I recorded this video. You're seeing this on Monday. But he was asked whether he would take cognitive assessment tests, as Donald Trump did, and he said he would not. And he was, well, watch this video and then I'll make my point.
Mr. Vice President, your opponent in this election, President Trump, has made your mental state a campaign topic. And when asked in June if you'd been tested for cognitive decline, you've responded that you're constantly tested in effect because you're in situations like this on the campaign trail. But please clarify specifically, have you taken a cognitive test?
No, I haven't taken a test. Why the hell would I take a test?
So you just saw in that video that has been shown all over the place, including my vlog the day before I'm recording this, that a reporter asks Biden, would you take a cognitive assessment test? And he says no. And that is what people have focused on. And you know what? I have to digress because I have to harken back to an earlier vlog, actually 2 vlogs, where I talked about the inability of, or unwillingness, but I think in this case, inability of Democrats to make logical arguments or to ask logical questions or to ignore logical questions that would arise from something that somebody says. In this case, I didn't show the entire video that I showed you because it's not really relevant to the point, but Biden makes this joke, or it's supposed to be a joke, when the reporter mentions that Trump took this test. One of the questions in the test is to tell the, well, line drawings of 3 animals, and Biden says, well, if Trump can't tell the difference between an elephant and a lion, I think that's what he said, but between 2 of these simple line drawing animals, then he is in a lot of trouble. Trump is. But the fact is, Trump did identify those animals correctly. He did know the difference between an elephant and a lion because that was one of the questions on the cognitive assessment test, the Montreal cognitive assessment test that Trump took and got 100%, which, by the way, is not what everybody gets. The score is, I think, 27 out of 30 questions. That's what most people get. So Trump did better than the average. But the point is that Trump could identify those animals. The question is whether Biden could. Maybe he could, or apparently he could from what he just said, but there are 30 questions on that test, and if he's in perfect mental shape, then why would he not be willing to take the test just as Trump did? But you just saw, and the reporter mentioned earlier in that video, you just heard it, he mentioned the total question was, Mr. Biden, you said that you have been tested multiple times. Would you take another test? And Biden said,
no, I haven't taken a test. Why the hell would I take a test?
Let's go back to an earlier video. Now, the one that I just showed you, that was taken a couple of days ago. This was taken on August 5th. Now, here's a video from July 1st.
There's some other headlines from Joe Biden's briefing on Tuesday, the former vice president's first briefing in months. He was asked if he'd been tested for cognitive decline. What happened there?
That's right, Craig. It was notable when Joe Biden was asked by a reporter about whether he has been tested, as you say, for cognitive decline. Here's that headline-making exchange. Take a look.
Have you been tested for some degree of cognitive decline?
I've been tested and I'm constantly tested.
Do you see the contradiction there, the obvious contradiction, or I would have to say a lie? He said only a month ago that he had been, or a little over a month ago, that he has been tested multiple times on his cognitive ability. He said he has been tested multiple times. Now this reporter asked the question of whether he would be willing, whether Biden would be willing to take a cognitive assessment test. The answer should have been, if Biden was being truthful on July 1st, that I've already taken the test multiple times. And then the reporter could ask, okay, would you release the results, or have the person who administered the test state what the results were? The reporter did not ask him that, which is another one of these situations that I'm talking about that I mentioned in a couple of earlier vlogs. The failure of reporters to ask obvious questions, because the obvious question is, well, I don't understand, Mr. Biden. You said on July 1st that you've been tested multiple times. Now you're saying that you would never take a test. Why should you? The answer should be that you would not take a test because you've already taken a test, you've released the results, so on and so forth. Because what's the point if you don't release the results? So what is the obvious conclusion? The obvious conclusion is that Biden lied. On July 1st, when he said he'd been tested multiple times, he lied. He has not been tested at all. He will not allow himself to be tested. And that's it. An obvious lie. So when the pundits talk about, or the Biden supporters talk about being worried about Trump lying, well, who's the liar? The liar is, in this case, Joe Biden. And that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by as always. Thumbs up if you like this video. Share it with anybody you think would also like the video. Got any comments? You can put them in the comment section below the video with any questions you might have, suggestions for future topics. I can always use more subscribers, so subscribe. I'm not going to beg like Andrew Cuomo did, begging rich people to come back to New York, and this could be a whole new vlog. Okay, rich people, what about conservatives? He said conservatives are not welcome in New York, so are we still not welcome? And what about gun owners? I could go on and on. Maybe I'll do a vlog with a list. But anyways, I'm not going to beg like Cuomo did, because I think the quality of my vlog speaks for itself. I don't have the problems that New York State has because, well, number one, I am not governed by Andrew Cuomo. I used to live in New York. I was governed by him, but I am now in Tennessee. So I will simply say that if you like that vlog that I did today, and if you like my other vlogs, that I would appreciate it if you would subscribe, because I love getting new subscribers. But most of all, I would love to see all of you again. I hope you all come back again. I look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.
He doesn't take a cognitive test. Any comment on what you're seeing? Because, I mean, it's quite amazing.
Well, I'm just seeing Joe Biden lose it. I mean, he is not cognitively there anymore. He does not have the cognitive ability to be our commander-in-chief. It's becoming more and more obvious as each day goes on. He decompensated today when he was asked about it. There was no reason to decompensate like that. But that's what happens when you start having cognitive issues. You get defensive because, you're backed into a corner and you don't fully understand the question, or you can't find the answer, or, the answer that you would like. And you can see that when people have cognitive issues, they get very defensive and they strike out sometimes, and I think that's what's happening. I think that he's in a really bad position right now.
Makes you wonder about